Welcome back. Fact, President Trump isn't shy about anything, and since returning to the White House, he hasn't been shy about using executive powers through either executive orders or actions. Yet, some of those have been met with stiff legal challenges. Here are just a few. Today, head of the federal agency that protects whistleblowers sued the administration for illegal termination. Labor unions sued the acting director of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau over an order to shut down most of that agency's work. A federal judge blocked part of an order to shut down USAID, and multiple labor groups are suing to block the president's federal buyout program. That, which we just heard from Weijia Jiang, is on temporary hold by a federal judge's order. Skye Perryman joins me now. She is the president and CEO of the nonprofit legal group Democracy Forward. Skye, it's great to have you with us.
Good to see you.
I've covered lots of tussles between the branches of government for years. And this is not the first White House to assert broad executive authority. The George W. Bush White House did through sort of a unitary executive idea. Does this feel like a fundamentally different kind of tussle over what Congress can do, what the courts can do, and the powers that this particular White House is trying to invest within it?
Well, certainly this White House is really operating completely outside of the bounds of anything that we've seen before, taking a number of positions that federal judges across the country have had to block or stop, including federal judges who, of course, were appointed by presidents of the president's own party. So this is not at this point something that you can chalk up to ideology or things like that. It's really about our basic constitutional order, our federal laws, and the way in which this administration is operating to the detriment of people and of communities, but also really in the throes of the law.
From your vantage point, Skye, what would be the clearest example of operating outside institutional norms of presidential power?
We have seen so many. I mean, with the stroke of a pen, this is a president that sought to take away constitutional protections from people with respect to birthright citizenship, where you're seeing every federal judge that has considered it and issued an order has had to temporarily block that because presidents don't get to change the Constitution with the stroke of a pen. We saw an abrupt attempt to discontinue essential services across this country, funding for programs like Head Start and Meals on Wheels, programs that are, by the way, very critical across the country, including in red areas, not just in blue areas, in rural areas, not just in large cities, that our team had to go into court and stop, and that has been put on hold. We've seen a range of other attacks on the nonpartisan and independent nature of our civil service and also of the First Amendment. This administration seeking to prioritize one ideology over another, which is really also in the throes of our First Amendment freedoms as Americans.
So there are legal challenges to this idea of a federal buyout, telling federal workers if you want to retire, you'll be paid until September. Some 65,000 have apparently signed up for this out of a federal workforce, just over 2 million. Some Americans might say, well, if they want to take the buyout, why not?
Well, look, I think that this really raises a range of issues really for the American people, not just for our civil servants. Over 90% of people in the United States, according to recent polling, believe that our government and people that work in our government should be promoted on their own merit, not because of loyalty to a particular political ideology or loyal to a particular, political perspective. But yet this administration is really seeking to hollow out our civil service. What they've done with the so-called fork in the road buyout is they're essentially proposing something that is not within the bounds of the law. The president does have some authority to manage the federal workforce, but he doesn't have the authority to engage in arbitrary behavior, which is what we have seen here, I believe is one of the reasons why you're seeing this on hold. In addition to that, this buyout, so-called, it promises money for federal employees that has not been appropriated by Congress. And so we have a lot of concerns on behalf of federal employees and on behalf of the American people that really rely on the work of federal employees about what the administration is doing here.
There were legal challenges to the administration's effort to close down the U.S. Agency for International Development, and they were blocked. And the judge asked the White House attorneys or the Justice Department for proof to back up its allegations of corruption, which it said was the reason why the agency needed to be shut down. The Justice Department did not provide any proof of that. What does that tell you?
Well, again, and this is one of our cases that we're pleased to litigate alongside our brave clients and then alongside our co-counsel at Public Citizen. But in this case, a federal judge could not find the substantiation that the government was making. Again, it shows you that this is an executive branch and a president that seeks to place themselves not only above the law, but also above the American people. And so that's what our team is really working to do, is to make sure that when these things happen, there are legal challenges brought. We do believe the courts are a real front line in the work to protect the rights of the American people and to protect our Constitution.
Skye Perryman, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.